Cats. I like cats. I'm sure you... Wait a minute. I did this intro already. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, we're doing our first sequel video. Cattails Wildwood Story is a game that I was super excited about when it was first announced, and I followed the Kickstarter pretty closely up until its launch. I played the first Cattails on a whim 3 years ago, and I immediately fell in love with this game. Its cozy and adorable atmosphere, lively and catchy soundtrack, being able to leisurely tackle the game at my own pace, finding collectibles, upgrades, and secrets, romancing a cat, which in any other context would raise some eyebrows, slaughtering everything and everyone and claiming the land for my own colony. I was ready to re-experience it all again, but in a more advanced form. I do have a bit of a history with this game. I interviewed Tyler and Becca on the original Cattails at the time of my old review, and they both were also generous enough to email me a Steam key to Wildwood back when the game was still in alpha. I still backed the game on Kickstarter, of course. This Crampy plush is just too adorable to pass up, and this album is very lovely. And this holographic sticker sits with the rest of my stickers, because I have decision anxiety. I also double dipped and got it on Switch, which is my preferred way to play. Being able to play with separate Joy-Cons while lying on the couch is an absolute blessing for a game like this. Every few months, I periodically streamed Cattails Wildwood Story during its alpha and beta states on my Twitch channel, and witnessed the new additions and changes each time I revisited. Yours truly also helped inspire knockback in combat.
I did also want to mention to Fox on the internet there, you had suggested at one point like a knockback mechanic for the enemies, and that actually inspired some of our combat mechanics. There is knockback in this game, and that is specifically because of our interview that we had, so thank you for that. Appreciate that. That was actually a great suggestion. It really added a lot to the sort of feel of combat.
Honestly, one of the coolest moments of being a YouTuber. Thank you, Tyler. All that said, however, this is not a paid sponsorship, and despite being gifted a copy and playing the early builds prior to release, I do intend to review and critique this game in its final state accordingly and honestly. But what exactly is this silly little cat game? Did this sequel live up to my expectations? Well, let's have a look and discuss at what exactly is Cattails Wildwood Story. Cattails Wildwood Story was developed by Falcon Develops, a husband and wife indie studio run by Tyler and Rebecca Thompson. Tyler worked as the lead developer, and Rebecca worked as the marketing coordinator. As a sequel to Cattails in 2017, a lot of the inspiration stemmed from Harvest Moon 64 and Friends of Mineral Town. The precursor to Cattails is the 2001 fan game Warrior Cats: The Untold Tales, which was inspired due to Tyler's sister's love for the series and wishing there was a Warrior Cats video game. With wanting to make Wildwood Story feel bigger than its predecessor, new inspirations for the customization option stem from the game Littlewood, along with the evolution of the Animal Crossing series, where in the earlier entries you're just a villager, but in the later titles you're now the mayor and control how you design your town. The game's main story was also influenced by Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. The duo would also hire a few freelancers to assist with the art and music. Narabaz would create the in-game character portraits, Denise Hall would create the new logo, Marie Lee Kirsimagi, I'm so sorry if I botched that pronunciation, Dina Norland, Baban Illustrations, and Nana Key would assist on creating concept and key art. The music was once again composed by Tormod Garvin and accompanied by pianist Alex Hillknight and saxophonist Naomi Sullivan. Cattails Wildwood Story was first announced on January 25th, 2022, with a beautifully animated trailer, showcasing some of the early gameplay mechanics. The Kickstarter was launched a few months later on May 10th with the funding goal of $30,000, which was reached in just under 2 hours. By the end of the campaign, Cattails Wildwood Story reached $241,315, over 800% of the targeted goal, and was backed by 4,242 backers. For context, the first Cattails was targeting only $3,200 with the final goal of $38,311. And that was only backed by 1,210 backers. I actually remember checking the Kickstarter constantly during the funding phase, and was very happy to see the game continue to reach its stretch goals. I've backed a few games on Kickstarter before, but I was definitely invested on the updates to Cattails Wildwood Story.
Look, Gary, there I am again! Look!
It leads to an archived Twitch VOD, but if you pay attention to the top right corner of your screen, there it is. Seeing the new updates to the alpha and beta builds at the beginning of every month was just really exciting. Cattails Wildwood Story would release on Steam on October 20th, 2023, and onto Nintendo Switch a month later on November 30th. While Cattails' Wildwood story hasn't been covered by any of the mainstream gaming outlets, it did garner very positive reviews from Ladies Gamers, SideQuest, GameGrin, and Life is Xbox. I can't say I've heard of any of these outlets prior to doing research, but each of these publications praised the game for the variety of things to do, the cozy and adorable presentation, and the survival aspects, but some critiquing the game for its combat mechanics. While there isn't a Metacritic score to note at the time of writing this, Wildwood Story does have an overwhelmingly positive review score on Steam. Towards the end of production of this review, I got the chance to speak to Tyler and Rebecca once again on the history and development side of Cattails' Wildwood Story. It was a lot of fun to speak to them, and if you want more Cattails content, you should definitely check this out after the video. Cattails' Wildwood Story is a survival sandbox RPG life sim at its core, offering the player a wide variety of things to do as they please. If you've played any of the Harvest Moon games or Stardew Valley, you'll be pretty familiar with a handful of these features. And if you've played the first Cattails game, you'll feel right at home, as most of the mechanics are basically the same, but more refined. And, if you by any chance happen to see my video on the first Cattails, I will be retrending a bit on what I've said previously, and if you haven't seen it, maybe go give it a watch after this video. Also, like and subscribe! I'll be calling back to the first entry if there are any notable changes or improvements to the formula. Starting things off, you must first make your cat. Returning from her playthrough from Cattails 1, I made my cat Daryl again. Except this time it's her actual color, not just the default blue. Wildwood Story opens with a brief cutscene explaining the lore of Cattails, the Forest Guardian, who's basically just Cat God, the destruction of their homeland, how you and your colony must relocate, build a new life, and restore the Forest Guardian's power. This is where you, the protagonist, come in as your colony's new leader. Here you are then given a tutorial on some of the game's mechanics, such as how to hunt, forage, fight, give gifts to other cats, and use skills. The Forest Guardian then makes a return, informing the band of cats that they're approaching their new home within the Wildwood. The player is given a few biome options to select for their colony, along with naming your colony and selecting your proper titles. As the boss of the Toe Beans territory, we will triumph over any adversity that comes our way. Once the colony of cats have settled down in their new home, the game becomes a complete sandbox, or litter box. Actually, that implies there's crap in here. The game becomes a complete sandbox for you to play and explore in. At the center of the world map lies your colony. This is effectively your hub with a handful of amenities and things to do while you're in town. Ember runs Ember's Emporium, the colony's local shop, where you can purchase a handful of things such as prey, herbs, cosmetics, or upgrades to your carrying capacity for a steep price. You could also sell Ember anything in exchange for Muse. Crampy is your colony's doctor. They can heal you fully or halfway in exchange for Muse. Talon oversees the colony's squads, stockpiles, and construction projects. You can select anywhere on the world map to deploy a squad once a day to either defend a territory you own, increasing the renown and harvesting resources, or to attack an unconquered square, which will require you to assist in a squad battle. Each square on the map provides its own resources, such as wood or stone. There have been times where I've asked myself if it's worth getting resources if it meant leaving a square prone to falling to the enemy. With the resources you've earned, they're put into your colony stockpile. You could choose to activate perks such as giving your allies more health or making your neighbors more friendly at the cost of burning resources. I kept these off during my playthrough as I was more interested on the construction projects. Construction projects provide the player upgrades, such as allowing them to assign more squads each day, or building tunnels to fast travel between the outer parts of the world map. And this is a cool new addition to Cattails. I love working towards upgrading my colony while simultaneously claiming the world map for myself. Alabaster provides the player with a garden where the player can grow herbs and can even acquire 3-star herbs if they're given enough plant food. Alabaster also sells the player upgrades to the garden and the ability to make seeds out of a selection of rare herbs. I used the garden a lot during my playthrough. Harvesting golden seals made it a lot easier to stay alive, Lavenders gave me the dopamine rush, more on that later, and I monopolized the entire drug industry by being the producer, manufacturer, and distributor of the colony's catnip supply. Glimmer runs the Museum of Curios. The player can find or purchase curio boxes, which are then identified and can be donated to the museum. Hilariously, these boxes contain garbage and man-made knickknacks, which Glimmer will bestow the player of their wisdom. And I love Glimmer's explanations. They're usually only half correct at best, or just flat out wrong about what each curio is supposed to be used for. It's great. You can check the task board for any side quests. These usually boil down to just mere fetch quests. requiring the player to bring a certain number of a specific item in exchange for task board tokens. Though there are some variations, such as exploring parts of the map, completing territory battles, or going down floors in the mines. In the original Cattails, you only had a single day to fulfill these tasks, but in Wildwood story, there's no longer a deadline and you can have up to 5 at one time. The player can also enter their den to go to sleep, save their game, access their storage, check the calendar, or observe the crystal clear pond, which pretty much acts as a TV, providing the player with a few stations such as the weather, the news, or cute little shows with new episodes playing each day. The player can also enter the mines from their town, though I will come back to this later. And finally, you can check out the Temple of the Forest Guardian, where you can speak to the Forest Guardian, check out the halls of statues, or donate to bundles. Talking to the Forest Guardian will bestow their wisdom upon you, giving you advice or just commenting on anything that you should be doing or have done. The Hall of Statues can be found on the east and west end. These contain statues of cats long past. The messages here are actually from the people who pledged the Statue Edition rewards from the Kickstarter. These range from honoring the memory of backers' lost and beloved cats, to inspiring and motivating quotes, to people who use their $300 for a good cause.
Well, you see, it's a gamer pad.
But for real, this is a lovely way to thank those who contributed to the project. Instead of granting you access to ruined dungeons like in the first entry, bundles are now used to recruit new cats to your colony. You start the game off with only 6 cats: Crampy, Coco, Jag, Ellie, and Ember, which make their return from Cattails 1. Sorry, Robin, my beloved. You will be missed. With the addition of Spark, Ember's fully grown child. To get new members, you'll need to bring them their required items in order to unlock them. Some members such as Alabaster, Talon, and Glimmer will also provide the new amenities I mentioned earlier. Fulfilling bundles was one of my favorite features in Cattails, and also in Stardew. However, with the exception of one post-game cat, I do personally wish I had to bring more than 3 types of an item needed to recruit a cat. A lot of the requirements were mostly common and easy to find objects that could be found at any time throughout the year. Like in Cattails 1, I had to wait the year out to find specific berries and bugs, and I got stupid lucky because a cat just happened to give me a cardinal as a gift, a rare bird that I legit couldn't find on my own. I never had that "yes, finally" moment with Wildwood, unfortunately. I was able to accomplish all the bundles pretty quickly. I understand when you have over 10 cats, some of the bundles will have to be easier than others, but I wish there was a few that required rare season-specific items, legendary bugs, or gems found in the later mines. I do, however, very much appreciate that there's now a donation tab on your menu to keep track of what you need to look out for and what you have in your inventory. Despite the bundles feeling pretty easy to accomplish, I did love watching my small colony continue to grow as I recruited new cats. As a life sim, building friendships and relationships is a must. Each of the cats within your colony have their own fun personalities and traits. Each cat will always have something to say, such as commenting on the weather, sharing hints of what things that they or others like, anecdotes on their interactions with the other cats, or just providing nuggets of details about themselves. The higher your friendship, the more friendly they'll act towards you and fill you in about their lives. I love the cast here. You have characters like Crampy, the crazy witchy-like doctor, Talon, the no-nonsense tough guy, Champ, the jock, Zephyr, the self-centered celebrity, Ember, the stressed-out shop worker and parent, Bob, a simple old-fashioned cat, or Charlotte, who's just straight-up everybody's edgy warrior cat's OC. You can give your fellow cats a gift once a day to further increase your bonds. As expected, each cat has their own interests and preferences. New to Wildwood is now you can see what gifts your feline friends like and love once they've received an item for the first time. Though I wish this feature also applied to the items that they hate. There's going to be a lot of trial and error, and you're bound to give someone something that they don't like pretty often. If you reached a 2-star friendship with a cat, you're able to enter that cat's den at any time, and at a 3-star friendship, you can buddy up with your friend to go on adventures with you. Your buddy will follow you around wherever you go. They'll help hunt prey, sometimes unsuccessfully, forage herbs, and help you in fights. In the first game, this was only designed for just your kittens, so it's neat that this mechanic was expanded to everyone. Each buddy has their own XP, level, and traits. As your buddies level up, their health and attack power grows. Each cat also has a passive and active trait, such as being immune to poison, dropping money, dealing more damage, destroying boulders, or healing you to name a few. They can be pretty helpful, though the AI isn't really perfect here. During combat, they'll go straight to a fight and often get dogpiled by enemies. For example, one enemy in particular has a shield that activates when hit, but the AI will still try to attack, only to deal no damage till they themselves get KO'd. That is a specific nitpick though. When they're low on health, the companions will try to avoid conflict if possible, but more often than not, my buddies will run out of HP pretty quickly if I don't step in during a fight. Despite this though, it is a lot more fun having a buddy tag along for the adventure. If there's a certain feline you're feeling strong emotions for, note to self, cut that joke from the video, you can romance any of the adult cats within your colony after you reach a 4-star friendship, and you can win over their hearts by giving them a rose and start dating. Your partner will start to refer to you in a more affectionate manner. I found Ember's story of being dumped by their spouse and having to raise Spark on their own quite compelling. They're tired, stressed, a workaholic, emotionally reserved, and afraid to fall back in love. And I think they deserve to be loved for who they are. Or if you want, you can just live out the polycaterous lifestyle and just date the whole colony and let them all worship the grounds that you walk on as their almighty ruler and lover. Thanks for the roses, Ember! You'll never guess who it's for! It's kinda evil that you could date both Ember and Spark at the same time. I'm not gonna lie. Just like the friendship meter, as you build a stronger relationship, the more they confess their feelings towards you. And the stuff Ember has to say is really cute, but I can't help but feel sorry for them. They're overwhelmed with work, trying to get Spark to follow in the family business, struggling to convey their emotions, express joy like they used to, thanking the player for being patient with them while they're dealing with their trauma and abandonment issues. I came here to play a silly cat game, and what I got was relatable emotional baggage. But for real, I love and feel for their character. A handful of the cats will have masculine or feminine names, be breeds and colors that are usually tied to a specific sex, and some cats are written with typical gender tropes and mannerisms. However, none of the cats are ever referred to by genders, so it's completely up to the player's interpretations for the romance options. Oh, I assure you, it's quite based. Sorry, I just finished playing Apollo Justice at the time of recording this. Once you are ready to tie the knot, you could purchase or craft a shiny trinket ring and propose to your favorite feline companion as a symbol of everlasting love. Thanks for the shiny trinket, Ember! You'll never guess who it's for! It's for you. I love you. You can select which venue for your wedding to take place at, and anyone who has a 2-star friendship will be there to celebrate the wedding with you. It's all just super cute and wholesome. Your partner's hearts will now be replaced by rings, adding yet another set of dialogue options for them to share. Each ring makes them express more of their love for you, and it's all just really stinking adorable. Once you've reached a 4-ring level, at any given point, your partner will ask if you want to have kittens someday. If you say yes, then the kittens will be born a season later. The player will always have 4 kittens. The kittens will share a color palette that blends both your current one and your spouse's fur. Since I stuck with Daryl throughout my playthrough, I named my kittens after my other pets: Lil Friend, Cinnamon, Speedwagon, and Chico. They look just like them. Just like the other cats, you can talk to them, give them gifts, and buddy up with them. Should the player reach a level 10 buddy with any of their kittens and have completed the main story, they can do a New Game Plus as one of your kittens. Just like my time in Cattails 1, however, I kinda waited till I was almost finished with the game to get around to having kittens. If you want to utilize them, I'd say marry your significant other pretty early on. If there's a certain cat that you just absolutely despise with every fiber of your being, you can give them a black rose and bestow misfortune and sadness upon them. This will immediately tank your friendship to 0 stars. The black rose can also act as divorce papers, as you can also end a relationship or marriage with your significant other. Thanks for the black rose, Ember! You'll never guess who— I couldn't do it. I love them too much. New to Wildwood Story is character event interactions. If your friendship level is high enough with a cat, and if you go to certain locations, you'll encounter unique cutscenes where 2 or more characters engage with one another. Often these exchanges are pretty lighthearted and silly, like Fliss and Lainey pulling a prank on Spark, but they can be sincere and endearing as well, such as Alabaster reassuring Garlic that they'll find their place within the colony despite their self-doubts. Sometimes there'll be conflicts, and often the cats will ask the player for an opinion or who is in the right of a situation. I love this addition. We get to see more depth and personality to these cats and witness their chemistry with the rest of the colony. It makes the place feel more lived in and much more happening outside the player's scope. Some of these cutscenes will also spark the romance between 2 cats as well. There are a few set pairings that will get together if the player isn't dating one of the 2 cats. Once they've witnessed 3 cutscenes of the couple, one of them will randomly ask the player if they should propose and marry their significant other, giving the player the option to approve or deny the relationship. If you encourage it, they'll get married the next day and ask you to attend their wedding, officially making them a couple. These are really cute, Though one nitpick is that the dialogue is exactly the same every time when a cat asks you if they should propose, if they're getting married, or have a kitten. It's not a super big deal really, but it does feel really jarring seeing Crampy speak in normal sentences and Talon expressing excitement for their wedding. It just doesn't feel right. One of the cats will move in with the other and share their home together. They'll often now make remarks about their significant other if you talk to them, which is just adorable. This goes without saying, but you can no longer date them if they're married. The couple will also have 1 to 3 kittens on specific dates, adding yet more members to the colony for you to befriend. Like their parents, they can also buddy up once they're old enough and reach a 3-star friendship. As a feral cat living out in the wilderness, it's important that you survive. You have a health and hunger meter that you'll need to keep an eye on. In order to sustain your hunger, one must know how to hunt and forage for food. Hunting will require you to sneak up on nearby prey. The closer you are, the more chance you have to a successful catch, but getting too close will cause the critters to scurry away. By default, hunting prey will prompt a QuickTime minigame for the player to do. But let's say you're awful at quick times. Well, you can also set hunting to a coin flip and let luck take the wheel, or set it to instantaneous to resemble the RNG immersion of the first title. I personally like the QuickTime feature a lot here. I felt more in control of catching prey, and after a while I started nailing these sequences pretty quickly. Most of my failures were due to one of my Joy-Cons desyncing and delaying my input. And totally not a skill issue or anything. Yeah. Prey will provide you with 1 to 3 bars of food depending on the critter you're chomping on. Foraging can easily be done by walking up and picking up nearby herbs, berries, and fungi. Some, such as blueberries and raspberries, just fill up your belly meter. However, most herbs can have their own unique properties. Golden seals can restore HP, marigolds can cure poison, valerians can temporarily boost movement speed. These consumables can help you out in various ways, though admittedly I didn't find myself using too many herbs that temporarily boosted my stats. I usually just sold them for profit or gave them as gifts. New to Wildwood story is now there's 1 to 3 star variants to each herb which determines its effectiveness. Naturally, you'll only find 1 or 2 star herbs out in the wild. 3 stars are reserved for shopping or growing your own. Hunting and foraging is an essential part to Cattails' gameplay loop. You're not going to get too far if you can't eat anything. And I'm a huge fan of this formula, though I can't speak for everyone on this as hunting and foraging can get repetitive, but there's something just so cathartic about just running around, mindlessly hunting prey as I'm making my way to my destination, or going for a run and picking up as many herbs as I can to stock up my storage. I spent hours just doing this, and I found it very relaxing. It's like fishing in a boat in the middle of a lake. It's quiet. It's just you and your thoughts in a tranquil state, where, for a moment, all of your problems in life just fade away. And hey, there's fish too! You can have up to 4 skills equipped at one time. Most of these skills are used for combat, such as summoning allies to help fight, or the Wild Slash to deal extra damage. Most of these skills are carried over and work exactly as they did in Cattails 1. Each skill has a cooldown timer once they're used, and these can take anywhere from 1 to 6 minutes before they can be used again. Part of me wishes that skills were changed to a mana system with way shorter cooldowns and mana slowly restoring over time, or could be refilled with consumables. Waiting for minutes, let alone 1, to reuse a combat skill again can feel a bit excruciating. More often than not, you'll only be able to use these skills once in a battle and only if it's ready at the start of it. It's especially devastating if you miss an attack or accidentally activate it too. I completely understand why the system's in place for skills such as diplomacy or summoning allies, so you don't just spam it and take over the map. Having a long cooldown makes sense, but in a mana system, you can just make it cost way more points to cast and still have a pretty hefty cooldown. On a positive note, sprinting is no longer tied to a skill and can be activated just by double tapping on the joystick, which was a much needed feature. It wasn't until I was capturing gameplay footage for this review that I realized just how slow your cat moves in Cattails 1 without the sprint skill. Skills can be changed and upgraded up to 10 levels at the scratch post within your den so long as the player has enough XP. Upgrading these will either boost its effectiveness or shorten the cooldown timer by a few seconds. In Cattails 1, you also had upgradable passive skills in hunting, fighting, swimming, and foraging. In Wildwood story, your passive skills aren't upgradable. Hunting prey is pretty much the level 5 equivalent from the get-go, allowing the player to see the radius of your prey's notice range. Foraging used to determine the effectiveness of consuming a herb, but this has been retooled to a star system. You can also swim much faster in Wildwood, and there are no longer any current tiles that will destroy you if you get stuck, nullifying the need to upgrade your swimming speed. I think the overhaul to the passive skill system was for the better, as you could dedicate your XP to active skills, or leveling up your buddies. Though, I suppose this is the part of the video where I now talk about fighting. Combat was my biggest issue when it came to the first Cattails, as the ideal strategy was to attack, run back, and repeat. You can also only hit what's directly in front of you with a fairly small hitbox. If you don't like the amount of enemies during a territory battle, you can always leave the area and come back, restarting the fight. There was also the issue where if your fighting skill was at level 1, you barely did any damage and you got your butt kicked. Whereas at level 10, you were basically a 1-foot-tall combine harvester. There was also a lack of enemy variety, where each opponent acted exactly the same. So did Wildwood fix combat? Well... Okay, so Wildwood's combat is mostly the same as its predecessor, but brings a few new additions to fighting. For starters, there's now knockback to your enemies, a much needed feature, asterisk. You now have a dodge button to maneuver with. Like Dark Souls, it gives you a few frames of invincibility if used correctly. There's also now a charge attack where you lunge forward at an enemy and deal extra damage, which is a neat addition. However, instead of taking small steps away and attacking again like I did in the first entry, I now employ the Joseph Joestar technique of running away after dealing a blow. Then I just charge up and repeat these steps until dead. This admittedly gets pretty tedious very quickly. I mostly avoided battles during my first 10 hours or so, as I felt like I wasn't doing enough damage to my enemies. The basic attack just isn't worth using, and you're bound to get hit yourself for trying. I'd only go into a battle if I had any skills ready, or if it meant losing a piece of territory if I ignored the conflict. The pro strat was just to wait till multiple enemies were lined up before I unleashed a charge attack. So the difficulty is kind of complicated to explain here. If you're engaged with a territory battle, you'll have a random number of enemies to fight and allies by your side. Just like the first entry, you can leave and come back, which resets the fight. As a true gamer, I play Cattails on impossible difficulty. There's no way a cozy cat game would totally... Yeah, maybe I should turn that down a notch. So when it comes to territory battles, your allies will be able to carry the whole fight by themselves on easy and kitten, will require you to join in the fight on normal, and will get absolutely obliterated in seconds on hard or impossible. Since I played Wildwood story mostly on hard, I had to do most of the fighting. A basic attack only does 1 damage, slight charge does 2, and a full charge does 3. Regardless of the difficulty you're playing on, the enemy HP, with a few exceptions, remains exactly the same. So say you didn't have any allies with you, such as the mines. You're still going to slowly chip away at an enemy's health regardless of your difficulty setting. There are 2 rainbow power paws that increase your charge speed, though if I'm going to be perfectly honest, it's not by much. If I had to make a few suggestions for combat, my first is that I wish there were just 2 hard to get power paws or resource heavy construction projects that just boosted the player's attack by 1 point each, just enough to fight on your own without being too OP. One of these upgrades can even be locked until post-game. You can use a Foxglove to boost your attack temporarily, but these are so rare that I never use them. The funny thing is that your attack power stays exactly the same, but your companion's attack power will increase as they level up. I am grateful that I helped influence knockback as a mechanic, but I do kind of feel like it could be improved a bit here. Oftentimes if I hit an enemy, I will still receive damage myself if I don't immediately run back, nullifying the purpose of knockback. The enemies don't have to fly as far away as, say, A Link to the Past, but I think if they were just given enough to make the player quickly time their next attack without them having to move if the enemy approaches them, if, the player presses too early or too late, they themselves will take damage. I do think the knockback in its current state could stay exactly as is, but make further knockback a construction project upgrade. My final critique is that I would get completely destroyed in a second if I got ganged up by multiple enemies, sometimes resulting in really cheap deaths. You do receive less damage on easier difficulties, but you can still get steamrolled pretty quickly. My last suggestion for improvement is the inclusion of invincibility frames when hit. Getting slashed by multiple enemies at once can be a death sentence if you don't have any golden seals on you. And while I think it's fine to not have invincibility frames on hard, I do think it should be included on at least normal and below. If you want to go a step further, you could even include invincibility frames onto enemies on impossible difficulty. Another funny detail here is that there technically is invisibility frames, it's just only for the Winter Festival Snowball Fight minigame. A major positive, however, is that there's now enemy variety. The Voidling cats have their own speed, attack power, and amount of health. Some of them can also sometimes shoot projectiles or perform a charged attack. This adds a further flow of combat, requiring the player to dodge these attacks. I was also pleasantly surprised by the handful of different enemies you'll find in the mines and ruins, most of which will have unique attack patterns and behaviors, such as these little demons that will shoot projectiles at you. Thankfully, you can send them right back to hell where they belong.
See you in hell.
Or these rock guys that will combust into flames and chase you. Some critters, such as crabs, snakes, and rats, can also fight back the player. Some enemies can now also apply status effects like poison, which can really mess the player up if they don't have any marigolds present. The hitboxes are also larger and easier to see. As far as combat goes, Wildwood Story does improve the formula, and unfortunately takes a step back as well. Dying will cause the player to awaken at Crampy's hospital and advance the calendar by 1 day. Depending on the difficulty, they'll lose none, some, half, most, or all of their items along with some of their money. I definitely died a fair number of times during my playthrough. It does get easier as you collect more hearts, understand enemy behaviors, and have more money, golden seals, and resources. But if I had to compare the survival, it is just like the first few hours of Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. Onto the world map. You're free to explore the region at your leisure. There's a handful of biomes included here: forest, beach, swamp, mountain, desert, and even a volcano. Each tile on the map also contains your colonies and the Voidling's influence. Territories marked by your colony will rarely spawn Voidling cats for you to run into. With some perks from Talon's construction projects, you will also have a better chance of finding rarer prey and herbs. Territories that are owned by you can also receive stockpile supplies if you assign a squad to defend that square for that day. Tiles further away from your colony will grant the player better rewards. Taking over the map is kinda tricky at first, at least on hard, because your land can easily fall back to the enemy if you aren't managing it. Entering a square gives you 5% renown a day, and each prey you hunt or herb you forage increases it by 1%. Defeating Voidlings during a territory battle will greatly increase your influence as well. Or you could be like me and grow so many lavenders that you can just take over the whole world map by consuming them. They're so good! Claiming all the territories admittedly doesn't really matter outside of the stockpile mechanic and if you want better odds to finding rarer objects, but man, I had so much fun claiming the whole land for the Toe Bean territory here. Taking over the world map is so cathartic and satisfying to do. Seeing all the purple squares turn white, starting with the right side and slowly claiming nearby squares. While combat isn't the best feature, I still had fun in fights solely on my way to conquering the land. This was one of my favorite features in Cattails 1, and I was happy to do it all over again. While exploring the map, different places will offer different objects, prey, herbs, and enemies for the player. For instance, the volcano can house rats and snakes, while you'll find toads in the swamp or crabs at the beach. If the player is observant, they'll also find secret power paw icons on the ground or rocks at certain locations. Collecting these will unlock upgrades. Depending on the color, these can increase your health, hunger capacity, run speed, make it easier to find rarer prey, or make it easier to befriend cats, rewarding the player for their sense of exploration. Each day in Wildwood lasts roughly 25 to 30 minutes. During the day, your colony members will be out and about, allowing the player to use the town amenities. But here's the best part. Any aspiring indie devs out there who are looking to make a cozy life sim, take notes. You do not have to go to sleep at night. You're not penalized for staying up late, and you technically don't even need to go to bed. Cattails Wildwood Story allows me to live out my ultimate power fantasy of living my life on sleep-deprived goblin hours. I sincerely mean it when I say that Cattails 1 and 2 having this feature is an absolute godsend. I cannot stress enough just how stressed I get in Stardew Valley when I glance at the clock and notice that it's already midnight and I have to rush back home and oops, I passed out before I can get to my bed. There goes all my money. 15 real-world minutes is not enough time to do everything. In Cattails, there's no rush. Sure, you'll miss out on some stuff if you don't finish before midnight, such as territory battles or attending to crops, but you have the entire day to do what you want. If you're awake for a certain number of hours, going to bed will give you XP as well as restore some HP. In Wildwood Story, each season is made up of only 10 days. Each season also provides different herbs and bugs to find, with winter making prey a little harder to come by. At the end of each season, all of the cats celebrate by participating in the festival plaza north of town. Here the player can mingle with the cats as they each say something regarding to the season or the upcoming one. During these festivals, Ember or Spark will also offer the player a minigame to compete for festival tokens, such as rock, paper, scissors, dice rolling, or running around and grabbing tokens. Speaking to Coco will allow the player to participate in the festive games. Turtle Racing in spring, which is a reaction racing minigame, Mouse Chase in the summer, run and collect as many mice as possible, Pumpkin Roll in autumn, my personal favorite, it's just pushy penguins from Mario Party 5, but Spooky, and Snowball Fight in winter, pelt as many snowballs while avoiding them yourself. You'll receive festival tokens depending on your performance in these minigames. which is my segue onto this game's currency system. There are 4 types of currency for the player. Mews, which is your standard form of money, are used in most shops. Much like the first game, I had a hard time finding money. I didn't really sell too many items unless if I was trying to purchase an upgrade, though by late game I did end up making bank by selling tons of catnip. Task board tokens are exclusive to the task board found in town, which can be used to purchase rarer items. You can only receive these by completing tasks. Festival tokens, as I just mentioned, are obtained by participating in the festival games. Coco will sell rarer items in exchange for these tokens, but the catch is that you can only make purchases during festivals, and each season rotates out which items are available. And finally, Mole Cash, which is exclusively to the mines. The moles will sell you a variety of items as well, but you can only make Mole Cash by selling them gems or ore that you find within the depths. The player is also free to explore within the caves. Each floor will provide a variety of rocks that the player will need to break in order to find the stairs to descend further below. The mines can and will mess you up if you don't come prepared. As you break boulders, you'll lose hunger at a much faster rate than you normally would. Bringing a ton of food will be essential if you plan to reach a checkpoint. Not only that, but there are a lot of enemies down here as well, and if you aren't careful, you can lose a lot of health very quickly. Making golden seals also necessary. Mining basically becomes a game of RNG, and you never know exactly where the stairs are hidden. In the earlier levels, there's usually 2 sets of stairs you can find, but some floors will only contain 1. In the later mines, you'll also need to meet prerequisites such as killing all enemies on the floor or flipping switches to open the stairway. You can also find themed floors such as foliage, lava, ice, or poison floors providing their own enemies, traps, and threats. Some rooms will also be dark and require the player to purchase a headlamp to see their surroundings. Without one, you can get killed in the dark pretty quickly by enemies you can't see. Funny enough, it wasn't until I was like 20 hours into the game did I realize you can actually upgrade the headlamp at the anvil in the back, which made things a whole lot easier. After each 25 floors, you'll reach a resting point. Once reached, you can return to that floor at any time. Floors 50 and 100 will reward the player with a power paw. There are 3 mines for the player to splunk into. Each one is unlocked after reaching floor 100 and increases the difficulty. The mines are really tough, to say the least. There have been multiple times where I've gotten so close to a resting point, only to then get beaten to a pulp by wicked bats, or have come so dangerously close to dying that I had to retreat before it was too late. Admittedly, the harder mines were the last thing I did in this game, and by that point I was kinda clocking out, so I did set it to kitten difficulty and just pushed myself to finish the last 2. I revoke my gamer privileges. Can you believe we've gone this far into the video and I still haven't even talked about the main objective of this game? So the player will find 4 ruins to the north, south, east, and west of the colony. However, they will be locked until the player has recruited a set number of cats. These are the dark ruins of the Wildwood champion. Here the player will be tasked with combat challenges, such as fighting voidling-like creatures, often in waves, and solving puzzles to access the next room. These puzzles range from really easy to actual thinkers. Each ruin offers different sets of puzzles and enemies to defeat. Once the player accomplishes the ruins, they'll face off against the Wildwood champion and... Wait. Oh snap, we get boss fights now? This new feature turns Cattails' Wildwood story from a cozy cute cat life simulator RPG into an unforgiving bullet hell. These boss fights are pure chaos and will absolutely destroy you if you're not prepared. I know I've complained about the fight mechanics earlier, however, these boss fights are actually a lot of fun and each one features different... Okay, let me turn off the Doom music. These boss fights are actually a lot of fun, and each one features different gimmicks and attack patterns to look out for. I will say it can be sort of BS when you get hit by a projectile, which then bounces you into another projectile, and then into another, and then before you know it, half your health is gone. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't have fun with this. It was honestly a surprise to me. I was not expecting boss fights here. I do wish you were able to refight them, or if there was a post-game boss rush mode or something. Pro tip though, turn on auto run for these. Double tapping will cause all sorts of problems in these fights. The player will need to defeat the Wildwood champion in all of their forms in order to complete the game. Once the main story is complete, there really isn't much in terms of post-game content. There's one unlockable cat that you can recruit, and you're still free to continue to do whatever you want. From that point onward though, your enjoyment depends on what you want to accomplish. There is a New Game Plus portal if you have a level 10 buddy with one of your kittens. Doing so resets the main plot, but you still keep all of your recruited cats, power paws, and money. There are a few minor differences, such as the cat you married in your first playthrough will have parent-specific dialogue for you. but your kittens from rival marriages, your siblings, and your original character will now cease to exist. Congratulations, we just given Ember more trauma to deal with. I can't say I really played much or was incentivized to do a second playthrough since I did everything on my first, though I'm also just usually pretty iffy on New Game Pluses in general. One of Wildwood's biggest strengths is the absurd amount of customization you could do in this title. Starting with the basics, you can rename your colony at any time by talking to Coco, or rename your cat by speaking to Ellie. But on to the fun stuff. You can select which pattern you want for your cat straight from the get-go, and you can change it at any time. There are also a variety of body types, ears, tails, and fur options you can choose from. Feeling creative? You can design your own custom palette as well. You can make anything from a simple brown tabby to the personification of eating every crayon in the box and vomiting it back up. It's totally up to you. You can add stripes, spots, and underbelly, and you can even color individual limbs and body parts. This feature really didn't need to go as hard as it did, but I'm so glad this is here. This is probably the closest you can get to making a cat look like me. You can also purchase accessories to decorate your cat and your kittens, and you can even have pets follow you as well. But it doesn't stop there. You can customize your den too. You're free to place furniture you own just about anywhere, and make the place look as cozy as you like to. You can even expand and restructure the entire den to a whole different layout. I made my den feel like a warm, cozy home with a bed by the fireplace, a bedroom for the family and kittens, a statue for my accomplishments as the boss of the Toe Beans territory and saving the Wildwood, but most importantly, I also built Ember a new and improved shop because they deserve it and I love them. You could also customize and rearrange your town layout itself, placing your stores and residence homes anywhere you want. You could also do landscaping like adding paths, water, and decorations to make your town the most beautiful place in the world. Or make it look like hell on earth. Again, it's totally up to you. Speaking of choices, there are a lot of accessibility options for you to select from, such as the difficulty, ranging from kitten all the way to impossible. I'm going to talk about Dark Souls for a moment. I know what you must be thinking. If this bozo says that Cattails Wildwood Story is like the Dark Souls to all cat games, I'm unsubscribing, dropping a dislike, and leaving a mean comment. Well, please don't. Okay, but you remember the Quelaag battle? You ever think like, man, she's quite revealing, or oh god, I hope my mom doesn't walk in during this cutscene. I just wish there was a way to censor this character. Phew. The point I'm trying to make here is that Cattails Wildwood Story is the best, if not the only, game that allows you to turn off arachnids. Say goodbye to those creepy crawlies with circles. Best feature. Also, Cattails Wildwood Story is like the Dark Souls, but there are some really good features here, such as altering the day length, changing the hunting from QuickTime, Coin, or Instantaneous, toggling off random enemies for a more casual play, a more legible and easier to read font, turning off lightning flashes, and enabling auto run. These are really great features for those who have sensitive eyes and are afraid of spiders, to gameplay features that fits everyone's playstyle. To wrap this section of the video up, there are also achievements for the player to earn which will reward them XP should they complete any. I would say finishing the game would take the player about 20 hours or so. It depends on what they want to invest their time into and what difficulty they're playing on. I decided to go for 100% completion by earning all the achievements, maxing out my friendships with everyone, claiming the entire world map, collecting every power paw and every object within the game. To be honest, by the end of year 2 and 40 hours in, I had accomplished pretty much everything there was to do in Cattails. The final year was just a coma fest to get the year 3 achievement. I wouldn't recommend forcing yourself to 100% it like I did. This was more so for bragging rights. But I'd go at this game at your own leisure and play until you're satisfied. I had a fun and relaxing time playing through Wildwood Story, but like the first title, after you've done almost everything and there's nothing left for you to accomplish, the game does start to feel repetitive. But I also wanted to note that if you plan to play the Switch port to save often, throughout my 45 plus hours, it did crash randomly like 5 or 6 times during my playthrough, which can be devastating if you haven't saved in a while. So Wildwood Story is a sequel to the original Cattails. However, knowledge of the first game isn't needed to enjoy this entry. Cattails didn't really have much of a main plot besides helping Coco bring back the Forest Guardian. We're given a prologue providing a brief recap of the events of the first game. The 3 original colonies, Forest, Mountain, and Mystic, each inhabited the Catlands and fought with one another. Despite their qualms, all 3 colonies shared the guidance of the Forest Guardian, who kept balance between the nations for many generations. That is until one day, several years later, the sacred temple was suddenly destroyed by an earthquake. With the Forest Guardian weakened, they tell the cats to relocate and build a new temple so their power can be restored. Once their new temple is built and you go to sleep a few nights later, the Wildwood champion threatens you in a dream. demanding you and your colony leave the wild woods or perish. Coco and the Forest Guardian also experience similar dreams and assess on what to do about the champion. Besides you, there are really only 3 other main characters here: Coco, the Forest Guardian, and the Wildwood Champion. Coco acts as your advisor and second in command to overseeing the colony. They are very formal, polite, direct, and share a close bond with the Forest Guardian. Coco, with their helpful nature, gives the player a tutorial on how the game mechanics work. They also fulfilled the same role in Cattails 1, guiding the player by teaching them how to survive in the wilderness after the player was left abandoned on the side of the road by Scumbag of the Year circa 2021. Coco lived in the Sacred Temple ruins and worked together with the player on restoring the Forest Guardian's power, which had disappeared prior to the events of the game. But who exactly is the Forest Guardian? Well, to quote the Cattails wiki, after the balance was restored and the Forest Guardian returned, the Forest Guardian kept... Wait a second, you can marry the Forest Guardian? I'm sorry, Ember. It's not you. It's me. I want to get with Cat God. After the Forest Guardian was restored at the end of the first Cattails, they continued to protect the land. Well, until the darn goof went up and disappeared again, the Guardian is wise and sees beyond a higher power than the mortal cats. Again, they're basically a god. Before I talk about the Wildwood Champion and the ending, I am going to put a spoiler warning here. Cattails' Wildwood story, despite having the name story in the title, has a fairly simple plot and it's not super long, but if you want to experience it yourself, here's a timestamp to jump to the presentation chapter. The Wildwood Champion's character arc can be broken down with each of the ruins the player explores. We learn about the champion before each of their boss battles, but there's also some additional lore by reading the carvings found within the ruins. Each of the ruins recount the evolution of their downfall. The first ruins informs the player that the Wildwood Champion has lost all the cats that once lived within the Wildwood. How the cats died and or disappeared is never explained, but as the Wildwood's guardian, failing to protect their cats has paid a heavy toll on them. The second ruins shows us the grief of the Wildwood Champion. They recount their emotional struggles, feeling heartbroken with the loss of their colony, lost in their own thoughts, and grappling with their loneliness. The third tells us about the creation of the Voidlings, pieces of the champion's power in the form of the mortal cats that used to roam the wild woods, shifting the tone of the once lost champion into one seeking vengeance and restitution. The fourth ruins continues the downward spiral of the champion's wrathful demeanor, lashing out at the injustices that were bestowed upon them. It's here that we learn that the Wildwood Champion was the one who caused the earthquake that destroyed the Forest Guardian's temple, wanting the Guardian and the mortal cats to suffer just like they did out of jealousy. Coco and the Forest Guardian discuss with the player about what they've witnessed within each of the ruins. It also happens that the new Sacred Temple was built directly on top of the Wildwood Champion's temple. And now it's time to put an end to their tyranny once and for all. I took Coco with me for this final trial. We've been through a lot together and... see ya, Coco. In the final temple, we learn it's been 100 years since the cats of the Wildwood disappeared. Grieving with the loss, the champion isolated themselves deep within the depths of the earth. Encountering the champion gives you one final boss battle, and man, this boss battle was fantastic. I brought so many golden seals with me and got completely destroyed by the champion 3 separate times. They have not 1, not 2, but 3 boss phases to go through here. Absolutely a fun time. Once they are defeated by you, a mere mortal cat, they realize that they aren't as powerful as they thought they were. They acknowledge their unforgivable wrongdoings and accept any judgment you bestow upon them. You're then given an option to spare or banish the Wildwood Champion. Initially, I thought that no matter what my decision was, that the Wildwood Champion would always be spared. You know, have a conclusive happy ending here, but no! You could send that bastard right into the freaking Shadow Realm and never hear a word from them again if you wanted to.
See you in hell.
Regardless of the decision, the cats of the colony will all gather together and celebrate the player's accomplishments for putting an end to the Wildwood Champion's evil acts. If spared, the champion will be restored to their former glory and thank the player for their act of mercy and promises to do better. The Wildwood Champion will now reside along with the Forest Guardian within the temple, as they both protect the wild woods together. I love the radiant orange compared to the muddy green of their corrupted form. In contrast to the blue Forest Guardian, the two complement each other very well. Also, can we throw the whole enemies to lovers romance trope in the trash where it belongs? We as a society need to aim higher. Fight and marry God! Cattails' Wildwood Story's story is fairly simple and straightforward. I wouldn't say it does anything groundbreaking, however, it doesn't really need to be. While yes, I'll always take an emotional roller coaster or thought-provoking plot any day, Wildwood Story is a fun, short narrative about stopping an evil, corrupt spirit, the power of friendship and community, and building a new home. It's a story that's appropriate for all ages and demographics. While the lore and themes aren't at Amori or Endling levels, shameless plug, I still very much appreciate that there's a backstory to the Wildwood champion, and enough to make the player empathize with them, even if they were a menace throughout the game. There's a reason as to why they acted the way they did. Wildwood Story could have easily written a cliche, bad character is bad because bad, and keep the story serviceable. But no, there's nuance to the Wildwood champion's character. Even after being saved, they are still burdened by the guilt of their actions, and wish to seek absolution with their new community and within themselves. Some of the colony members will also share their skepticisms and concerns of trusting the champion after everything that they did. The Wildwood champion will have to work hard to earn the trust and respect of the colony rather than immediately being forgiven by them, which makes their dynamic believable and a great touch. While you do get to learn about the other characters through your interactions with them in normal gameplay, I do wish Coco, the Forest Guardian, and perhaps some of the other cats got more of a chance of character building and engagement in the main story. I think these characters are fun, and I just want to see more interactions between them. If or when there's ever a third Cattails, I'd love for the main narrative and objectives to be explored a bit more. But despite the simplicity of Wildwood Story's plot, I thought it was short and sweet, didn't overstay its welcome, and it was overall a good inclusion. Cattails' Wildwood Story uses a pixel art style for its overworld and characters, and visually I think the game looks great. The visuals are very reminiscent of the first entry, which keeps the game's identity within Cattails as a series, but everything is more stylized, unified, and polished. In Cattails 1, the world design had a more realistic approach with its varying shades of pixels for objects such as trees. In contrast, tiles would also just cut off, leaving the world feeling inorganic and geometrical. In Wildwood Story, trees and rocks now have a blend of realism and cel shading. The colors in the environment aren't as muted, and tiles will now properly round off on edges, leaving patches of dirt or bodies of water looking organic and natural. While I am still very impressed that Tyler did the whole first Cattails by mouse, I am glad to see that he had a drawing tablet this time around. And the world map here is great too. The game uses a tile-based system, so you're going to be seeing similar trees and foliage multiple times, but the world map offers a variety of ideas on what to do with its reused assets. For example, Grim Clearing mostly consists of dead trees, Strange Tarn has a giant purple lake surrounded by large crystals, and Crater literally has a big crater right in the middle of the map. Most of these locations don't feel like Forest Location Number 7. There's usually a gimmick, landmark, or notable feature that makes each section of the map distinct while recycling assets. The base cat models are also redesigned to feel more proportionally accurate to a real cat. This change I think was for the better, as it allows for more variety of body types and fur customizations. The attack animations, prey, and insects are also larger and easier to see as well. The UI is also a lot cleaner, organized, and is actually not done in a pixel art style, offering a handful of useful tabs for the player to conveniently cycle through. The beige color palette is very easy on the eyes, and the text box designs are playful and cute. I like that instead of paws, the Forest Guardian has a light blue star design, which is just a fun touch. I found the thin design font really easy to read, and I think it matches the game's visual presentation well, but I appreciate that there's an option to turn on Arial for those who are having a hard time reading the game's creative font. Of course, how can I not talk about the new character portraits? These are the most notable improvements here. While I did like the goofy smiles and expressions from the first title, these portraits are just absolutely lovely, and they render the characters, their personalities, and expressions so phenomenally. With the exception of the kittens, each character has a handful of different portraits to convey their emotions, and they're all just so expressive. It could have easily just been a simple face change, but no, all these are completely separate renders. Narrabaz went all out on these portraits, and I adore them so much. Also, Crampy's Plague Doctor mask changing eyes based on their expressions is just priceless. The in-game character animations are fairly simple and get the job done. Most characters, prey, and enemies simply just have a walk cycle and not much more, though we do now have a proper run animation, instead of just doing big steppies at increasing velocity. The environmental animations, such as water reflections, leaves in the wind, and fog, do enhance the atmosphere and immersion. Of course, the crowning jewel in the animation department has gotta go to that intro. Like, look at how well done this is. This being the first thing I saw with the announcement trailer had me so hyped. The writing here is also fun. Without repeating too much of what I said earlier, the cast of cats are entertaining to talk to. Their conversations are usually lighthearted and silly, but each character has their own unique personality, traits, and interests that separate them from the rest. Though, I did get the twins Fliss and Lainey mixed up numerous times. While we learn about some cats more than others, some of their conversations sprinkle in character depth with their backstories, insecurities, and personal thoughts. Though, I wasn't able to check with every character, as at the time of recording this, the Cattails wiki is still missing a ton of dialogue on a handful of the cast. The main story's plot is fairly simple and straightforward, but I do like the included character arc of the Wildwood champion. Tormod and the team really knocked it out of the park again with the soundtrack here. And dude, I freaking adore the music in this game so much. I got the soundtrack early due to backing it on Kickstarter, and just like the first game, the soundtrack is on my walk playlist. I can't help but just have a dumb smile on my face to these tunes. Most of the songs included here are lively, calm, bouncy, and fun. Each of the seasons consists of 3 tracks that play on different days. Each of the 3 tracks have their own distinct flair, yet complement the evolution of their respected seasons so well. For example, Summer 1 is whimsical and carefree, almost like a sunrise. Summer 2 is jazzy, bombastic, and full of energy, a day out in the sun. Summer 3 has a more peaceful and quiet piano melody, reminiscent of a sunset as the season will soon change to fall. There's also seasonal variations to combat, festival, and den themes as well. Each of the den themes are all cozy and warm. The festivals are also fun and exciting, especially Autumn 1 because it's Halloween themed, and the combat tracks all remain energetic despite using the season's soothing instrumentations. There's a lot of peaceful and toe-tapping tracks included with the soundtrack that kept me engaged during my playthrough. Since these songs would switch out after 3 or 4 days, they never got old. I also love it when the sun sets and the music stops, and it's just the immersion into the quiet ambience of the night. The sound design is also really good, though it is fairly quiet for the most part, so I honestly don't have too much to discuss here. The sounds are never in your face, nor were they ever obnoxious. The menu and UI sounds have this cartoony and clicky, yet faint flair to them, which I found very pleasant. I think the only outlier in the sound department is the combat attack sound. During a territory battle, that same 1 or 2 attack variations will just stack multiple times while a bloodbath is happening before your eyes. It's not terrible, loud, or annoying, but you will hear it a ton during combat. Most enemies also have unique sounds as well. I can't help but feel bad whenever I'm attacking the projectile spewing bugs, but then I remember that these things are absolutely evil and could easily ruin a mining expedition and need to go back to hell where they belong.
See you in
Each cat has their own distinct meows as well, but the most important sound related feature here is the dedicated meow button. So, should you play Cattails Wildwood Story? I would definitely recommend it. If you want to get lost in a cozy game for hours and have the freedom to go at your own leisure, this is the game for you. If you play the original Cattails, you'll definitely enjoy this follow-up. I would recommend against this game if life survival sims just isn't your genre, if you're looking for something shorter, if you want something with more action and complex mechanics, or if you're just some kind of monster that just doesn't like cats.
I don't want to know you.
Cattails does also come with a caveat that things might get repetitive over time, which might not mesh as well for some players. Cattails Wildwood Story is not a perfect game by any means, nor does it revolutionize the life sim RPG genre. Well, besides not forcing you to sleep, that is. As a sequel, I was hoping for more of an overhaul on the combat side of things. However, combat is just one element of a much larger package. There is so much to do here. You can spend hours fighting voidling cats, engage with the residents, work on acquiring unlockables, customizing your town, or just running around and collecting stuff. There's something you'll certainly enjoy here. At the end of my original Cattails video, I said that, quote, the simplicity of Cattails has a smaller budget and early build charm to it. And I can say that Wildwood Story had captured the same feeling. Obviously the game is more refined and polished than its predecessor, and I specifically played the early build to this one. But what I mean by this is that I feel like I'm playing a passion project made by a solo dev. There's going to be imperfections and flaws, but I can tell that Wildwood Story was made by someone who cared about making a quality casual game for players to get immersed in. The visuals, characters, and score are also delightfully charming and welcoming. The presentation paired with the addictive gameplay kept me hooked and engaged for hours on end. And while the main story is pretty standard, I still had a fun time with it. Around the time Wildwood Story launched last year, I was under a lot of pressure and stress from work and life in general, but taking a few hours at the end of each day to decompress with this game was very cathartic and relaxing. reliving the same comforting experience I had with the first title 3 years ago. Cattails' Wildwood story lived up to most of my expectations and is a great sequel with a lot more content. Seriously, I spent twice as long playing Wildwood than the first game, and this video became twice as long too. Oops. Though as I mentioned earlier, I wouldn't force yourself to 100% it unless you truly feel compelled to do so. I'd say to go at it at your own leisure till you have had your fill. Cattails' Wildwood story is available on Steam and Nintendo Switch, and I would encourage you all to check it out. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate your viewership. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to leave me a like and subscribe if you're new. Tell me your thoughts. Did you play Wildwood Story? Did you play the first Cattails? I would love to hear it. This video became a bit of a monumental undertaking. So I wrote the script for this video back in January of 2024, and I played Wildwood back in December of 2023. And I've had to redo this outro like 3 times because the first time I recorded it in like February, I was like, yeah, 2023 was an awful year. And then I recorded it again in July where I'm like, yeah, 2023, the first half of 2024 was awful. And now I'm like, it's 2025 and this video still isn't done. So yeah, sorry I haven't uploaded anything in like the past 2 years. You know, it be that way. Work was kind of taking a lot of my free time and creative energy, but I am back and I am hoping to kick butt this year. So thank you for sticking around. If you remember that you subscribed to me way back when, thank you. I'm glad you're here. And if you're new, I hope this was a lot of fun. Please be sure to check out some of my other videos. I put a lot of work into what I do. Yeah, I just want to say thank you. I also really wanted to thank Tyler and Rebecca once again for allowing me to interview them and talk more about Wildwood Story. It truly was an honor. And yeah, Tyler, Rebecca, if you're watching this, thank you so much. I sincerely appreciate it. I'm going to plug in my Twitch at twitch.tv/afoxontheinternet. I haven't streamed much over the past few months, but I intend to get back into it more regularly, probably at least once a week. No set schedule yet at the time of recording this, but I will certainly try. I also have my Discord server where me and my community post memes and talk about nonsense, and I keep updates to my content in there. So if you want to join my little server, my little community, I would love to have you. I also have a Twitter, which I sometimes use. I don't use it that often due to he who shall not be named, but I'm also a Humble partner, so if you're like me who gets most of their games through Humble Bundle and wants to help support me in the channel and get some games out of it and donate to charity, I have an affiliate link in my description if that sounds interesting to you. But yeah, I want to thank my returning subscribers and my Discord community once again for just being patient with me on this video and just, you know, sticking around. But my plan for 2025 is to have more shorter videos just so I can cover more games that I really want to talk about. And you know, when you stick to like one project for way too long, it starts to bog you down. So I want to try to avoid that this year and kick butt at making YouTube content again. So not to say I'm not doing any more video essays. It's just I need to pace them out, I guess. But anyway, I want to thank you all so much again for watching. And I hope that you have a wonderful day and that you stay safe and take care.